Greetings. My name is Pamela Craig, and I am a student at Liberty University seeking a Master's of Art in Human Services. This is my interpersonal communication project for Human Services 508. During this presentation, I will give an introduction and a brief overview of what interpersonal communication means. I will also address my overarching goal for my life and define what it means to enlarge the conversation. I'll provide information about how my background and behavioral blend have influenced my conversation, as well as discuss barriers to interpersonal communication. I will identify forms of noise pollution and provide possible solutions. Finally, I will present my plan of action to improve my interpersonal communication skills. Next slide. What is interpersonal communication? Stewart defines interpersonal communication as the kind or type of communication that happens when people involved talk and listen in ways that maximize the presence of the personal. This can be accomplished by communicating in groups or one-to-one. Interpersonal communication can occur over the phone or face-to-face using verbal or nonverbal language. I completed the Discovery Communication Skills Test and scored 53 out of 100. This score was listed as average. However, it indicates that there is much room for improvement in my communication. The results show that I scored highest in insightfulness, meaning I have skills and understanding of seeing things from the perspective of others and realize the importance of empathy in communicating with others. I scored lowest in verbal expression. The results suggest that I have a fair amount of difficulty getting my point across to others. Unfortunately, the truth is I sometimes choose not to express myself clearly so as not to cause conflict or disagreement with others. Next slide. In his definition of interpersonal communication, Stewart mentions the presence of the personal. What is the personal? This can be explained in 5 features of interpersonal communication. The first is uniqueness. Uniqueness is the features that make us non-interchangeable. These varying traits, experiences, and ideas that shape our communication. Second, we are unmeasurable. Our feelings and emotions cannot be accurately measured. For example, my goal may be to encourage others each day. Therefore, I smile and affirm others around me, though I may be having a really bad day myself. Third, responsiveness. Humans are responsive beings. We respond to others and what goes on around us. Fourth, reflective. We reflect on our own awareness and lives. Fifth, addressable. We recognize when we are addressed. Addressability makes a difference between talking and talking with. Next slide. Enlarging the conversation means basically understanding your skills and weaknesses in communication and working to improve those weaknesses while inviting others to join in the conversation. This can be accomplished by recognizing those areas where you need to be improved and working to improve those areas, and doing so in a way that you become more inviting in your conversation with others. Next slide. Inhaling and exhaling. Just as inhaling and exhaling are essential to sustaining life, the two processes are vital for good communication. Inhaling, or listening, is what we take in. Exhaling, or speaking or expressing is what we give out. Next slide. An overarching goal is a master goal or mission. My overarching goals are to be a level 1 listener and not to be a rescuer. Learning to listen with more empathy and trying to see things from others' viewpoints will help me to become a more effective, empathetic listener. Burley Allen explains or describes a level 1 listener as an empathetic listener, one who is willing to address and examine the feelings of others and not just hear in a conversation but truly listen. Burley Allen describes a rescuer as one who seeks to give advice to others and feels that they have the ability to solve other people's problems. Rescuing can be detrimental to the rescuer because it can lead to burnout, and the person being rescued is not given the opportunity to solve their own problem, to solve their own problems. Next slide. Using the Uniquely You personality assessment, I discovered that my personality blend is CIS, or Competent Influencing Specialist. Some characteristics of CIS blend are more passive than active, strong people skills, prefer peace and harmony, and not pushy or controlling, and liked by others for friendliness, enthusiasm, and cordial nature. I will discuss how my background and my blend affect my conversations. I was raised in a household where I was taught somewhat that children were to be seen and not heard, and was not always given the opportunity to express my opinions and my viewpoints. I see that carried over in my life and in my conversation today. As mentioned earlier, oftentimes I will not say what's on my mind, or I'll downplay my own thoughts so as not to cause conflict with others. As far as my blend, my personality blend, I've worked most of my life in human services jobs where I've felt the need to express a certain level of friendliness or enthusiasm, and still seeking peace and harmony in order to get things done and in order to help people or provide the services needed for others. Next slide. Barriers. Barriers in my communication would include problem solving, rescuing, and distracted fake listening. Again, in being a rescuer, I feel the need to take on other people's problems and solve other people's problems. That often does not allow me the opportunity to adequately listen to what is being said to me, because all the while in my mind I'm coming up with solutions. The second barrier, as mentioned, is being distracted or being a fake listener. This is not an intentional thing, but often as I'm being spoken to, my mind begins to wander to whatever's going on in my life on that particular day, or whatever I may have to do, whether it be homework, tasks involved in my job, what's going on with my son. My mind wanders there, and I find myself faking listening and not really getting the gist of what's being spoken to me. Next slide. How to tear down the barriers. First and foremost, I've established a goal to become an understanding listener, and to understand the role of being a listener. Being a listener does not mean simply hearing what that person says and waiting to jump in and give my viewpoint, but it means to actually accurately listen with empathy, without judgment, and really hear what is being spoken to me in true conversation. Next, I will participate in conversations as a level 1 listener. And again, that means I will listen without judgment, without bias, with empathy. I will choose to see things from the speaker's viewpoint versus just trying to get my point across. And lastly, I will listen with understanding and not tune out what is being said. I will take the time to hear what's being said and presented to me. I will close out all of my background noise, whether it be my personal affairs, whether it be my cell phone, whether it be whatever's going on around me. I will choose to listen and understand. Next slide. Noise pollution. Noise pollution, there are 2 methods discussed in the text. Internal distractions. Internal distractions are things that we do internally that cause problems with communicating. An example of internal distraction is personal bias. I may meet a person and I may form an opinion of that person in my mind, and from that point on, whatever that person speaks to me is kind of shaded. I don't really hear or really choose not to listen to what's being said to me based on that bias. The next is external distractions. Those include those things that are going on around us that cause us to be distracted and interfere with our listening. Those things could include being in a noisy household, conversations going on around you, being stuck in traffic, or interference from a cell phone ringing, or any other type of distraction. Next slide. Improve listening skills. The way I choose to do that, or the way I will attempt to do that, is to remember the 3 goals on the Talk Listener cards. Those 3 goals are to provide safety, to understand, and to clarify. And I will also separate from the drama triangle and the role of the rescuer. Again, I will not take on the problems of others. I will not try to find solutions to everyone's problems. I will allow others the opportunity to speak to me, and I will listen, and I will allow them to find their own solutions. Next slide. Conclusion. I would like to thank you for allowing me to take the time to present my interpersonal communication project. Thank you again, and references will follow.